Before there was internet fraud and phone scams, there were always swindlers. Female swindlers too. Discover the stories of women from the past who not only survived but thrived as con artists and thieves. How did they use their feminine characteristics to swindle in a world where men made the rules? Join me, Lucy Worsley, historian and author, and my all-female team in Lady Swindlers, wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Jason Alexander.
And I'm Peter Tilden.
And together, our mission
on the Really No Really podcast
is to get the true answers to life's baffling questions like
why the bathroom door doesn't go all the way to the floor, what's in the museum of failure, and does your dog truly love you? We have the answer.
Go to reallynoreally.com
and register to win $500, a guest spot on our podcast, or a limited edition signed Jason bobblehead. The Really No Really podcast.
Follow us on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello. From Wonder Media Network, I'm Jenny Kaplan, and this is Womanica. This month, we're diving into the divas of history, examining how the label has been used from many angles, whether describing women pejoratively or with admiration. Today, a real estate tycoon whose behavior earned her the nickname Queen of Mean. She's also attributed with saying that only the little people pay taxes, and later she'd go to prison for tax evasion. Meet Leona Helmsley. Leona Helmsley was born Leona Mindy Rosenthal on July 4, 1920, in a rural part of New York. Shortly after she was born, her parents, Ida and Morris Rosenthal, moved the family to Brooklyn. Morris was a hat maker. His business grew when he started making insignia for the army, though the family wasn't wealthy by any means. Leona was a driven student. She did well in school, and after finishing high school, she got married and had one son, Robert. The marriage lasted 12 years, ending in divorce in 1952. The next year, she married again, and 7 years later, divorced again. After her second divorce, Leona got involved in real estate. She started selling luxury apartments in New York's Upper East Side, and she was quite successful. By 1969, Leona was leading a luxury real estate company. Around that time, she met a giant in her field. Harry Helmsley was a real estate tycoon. At its height, his empire was worth an estimated $5 billion, and he owned some of New York City's most iconic landmarks, including the Empire State Building and the Flatiron Building. How Leona and Harry met is up for debate. According to Leona, Harry had heard of her reputation in real estate and told one of his executives, whoever she is, get her. Former colleagues told a slightly different story in which Leona cornered the bespectacled Harry at an industry event and danced with him for the entire night. Regardless, the two struck up a powerful partnership. Leona started working at one of Harry's companies, and a few years later, once Harry finalized his divorce from his wife of 33 years, they made their relationship official. In 1972, Harry and Leona tied the knot in one of his penthouses. The 10,000-square-foot duplex where the ceremony took place had panoramic views of Central Park. Leona adjusted quickly to her new lifestyle. The massive Manhattan apartment, along with their Palm Springs penthouse, with a private jet to ferry her between the two. Shortly after their marriage, Leona and Harry jetted off to Palm Springs to escape the November cold, as they often did. According to their testimony, they awoke to someone leaning over Leona. She was stabbed in the chest and suffered a collapsed lung. Harry was stabbed in the forearm. No suspect was ever identified, and the case was never solved. But after the incident, the couple began traveling with security. In 1980, Harry tapped Leona to lead the Helmsley hotel chain. She later told reporters of the decision. He said the best thing about it was that the board of directors meeting was over when we got out of bed. And that's how Leona ended up at the helm of the multi-million-dollar 30-hotel chain. Leona quickly established herself as a mercurial presence. The hotel staff had a system for warning each other when she was on the way, so they could prepare for the impending tirade. But Leona's star really rose when she became the face of the luxury hotel chain in the 1980s. She appeared in glossy print ads that boldly declared, "I won't settle for skimpy towels, why should you?" Hotel occupancy nearly tripled, and Leona continued starring in ads, establishing the Helmsley hotel chain as a luxury brand with a snappy personality. one that fit right into the 1980s Reagan-era zeitgeist of unapologetic luxury and wealth. But towards the end of the era, that sterling image became tarnished. First, in a case where it came to light that Leona had failed to pay sales tax on thousands of dollars of jewelry she'd purchased. As the case continued, Leona gave her testimony in exchange for immunity. And while she admitted to participating in a tax evasion scheme, she got off scot-free, while two officials at the luxury jewelry store were charged. Then in 1987, a disgruntled former employee tipped off the New York Post about Leona and Harry's business dealings. A series of articles kicked off a state and federal investigation. Investigators found an astounding pattern of tax evasion. As it turns out, Harry and Leona were billing almost anything to their business, be it as dramatic as a $1 million marble dance floor on top of their swimming pool, or something as mundane as Leona's bras, which she billed as official hotel uniforms. By that point, Harry Helmsley was well into his 80s. He was found unfit to stand trial, so Leona faced 235 counts of tax evasion in the courtroom alone, and she was as defiant as ever. During the trial, a former employee told the courtroom that Leona had once told her, "Only the little people pay taxes." Rather than deny it, Leona's team embraced her image, while reminding the jury that there was nothing inherently illegal about being mean. Ultimately, Leona was convicted on just over 30 counts of tax evasion. She was charged a $7.1 million fine and was sentenced to 4 years in prison. On April 15, 1992, tax day, 71-year-old Leona began her sentence. She ended up serving just over 18 months in a federal prison. As part of her release, she was required to perform community service. In 1995, a federal judge added 150 hours when he found she'd been sending an employee in her stead. And while Leona was soon free and still wealthy, she was largely shunned from New York's elite social scene. Harry's health continued to decline, and he died in 1997. Leona found companionship and a new face for the hotels shortly after Harry's death. Trouble, a white Maltese, became the disgraced hotelier's constant companion. And though she never fully recovered, Leona remained a force in New York City real estate. In fact, she faced additional charges of tax evasion and other lawsuits from former employees right up until her death. Leona Helmsley died on August 20th, 2007. She was 87 years old. She made headlines after bequeathing the bulk of her estate, $12 million in total, to Trouble, her dog. Trouble lived in luxury with thousands of dollars per month for grooming, food, and a security detail until her death in 2011. All month, we're talking about divas. For more information, find us on Facebook and Instagram at Womanica Podcast. Special thanks to Liz Kaplan, my favorite sister and co-creator. As always, we'll be taking a break for the weekend. Talk to you on Monday.
Before there was internet fraud and phone scams, there were always swindlers. Female swindlers too. Discover the stories of women from the past who not only survived but thrived as con artists and thieves. How did they use their feminine characteristics to swindle in a world where men made the rules? Join me, Lucy Worsley, historian and author, and my all-female team in Lady Swindlers, wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Jason Alexander.
And I'm Peter Tilden.
And together, our mission
On the Really No Really podcast
is to get the true answers to life's baffling questions like,
why the bathroom door doesn't go all the way to the floor, what's in the museum of failure, and does your dog truly love you? We have the answer.
go to reallynoreally.com
And register to win $500, a guest spot on our podcast, or a limited edition signed Jason bobblehead. The Really No Really podcast.
Follow us on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.